I forgot about the time.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's understandable. All right, so I got a message from YR not too long ago saying we need to talk about this WrestleMania um, gearing up that's going on, or I guess right now at the moment. But right now, my focus is this program, which of course is TV Memories, with of course
Right.
me, Dr. Earl, and Arknolia Strogamine. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about someone who I consider the original Dick Wolf or the Dick Wolf of his generation. I'm talking about Mr. Jack Webb. He started out in radio broadcasting. He moved to TV. He was the creator of many programs. He also had his own production company. I guess it was called Mark 7 Unlimited, if I'm correct. He was the man behind probably one of the probably one of the first Law and Order law drama franchises known as Dragnet, in which he portrayed Sergeant Joe Friday. Now, there were two versions of that series. There was the 1950s, but the one we mostly know was the 1960s version, him alongside Harry Morgan as his partner Bill Gannon. Now, of course, it would solve many cases, look into many situations. One of them is someone who threatened to bomb a party due to mental illness after being isolated. A debate between Friday and this Tim Leary wannabe, I guess you would call him. He was like, telling kids to expand their minds, and Friday was giving his description on what it's like to help a kid recover from drugs, going through withdrawals and such, throwing up in the streets. It was a very interesting discussion, as well as kind of sips. It's a very interesting debate because it still goes on to this very day. Kids would expand, but yet they're not aware of the consequences when you get it fully addicted. Of course, he would create other TV series like Adam 12, Emergency, and one, I think his last one, if I'm correct, was Project UFO. And if I remember, there was small talk of him returning to the TV screen in the new 80s updated version of Dragnet. But unfortunately, he passed away in 2000, no, excuse me, 1982. I believe he was about 62 years old, if I'm correct. And sadly, we never got to see that. Now, of course, we had the Dragnet movie, which came out a couple years later, with Harry Morgan as Captain Bill Gannon, Sergeant Joe Friday, played by Dan Aykroyd, and his partner Pep Strebeck, played by Tom Hanks. That was kind of like a parody. It was like a action slash comedy, needless to say. Whereas the Dragnet TV series was mostly seriousness. But then again, that's how some of these movies are when you come from the TV screen to the movie screen. All right, there. So, I remember shows like Dragnet being shown on syndicated TV a few times. In fact, I also remember the show Emergency, which he was the co-creator of in 1972 when that series debuted. I remember shows like Adam 12, as we mentioned, and we cannot forget Project UFO, which didn't last that long, unfortunately. It's centered around a couple of Air Force agents or people involved with the Air Force looking into cases involving extraterrestrials, UFO sightings, encounters, and all that.
Well, that sounds like
So
that would have been an interesting concept nowadays.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, but then again, at the time, every movie, every TV series out there was trying to capitalize on the first Star Wars, which back then was simply called Star Wars, long before it was retitled Episode 4 A New Hope.
Right.
And everybody was coming up with their own little versions, their own little thing. And I guess Webb decided to go along with it, I guess, but focusing on real cases involving UFO sightings, extraterrestrials, as I mentioned. And it's to say that Webb often took his inspiration for the storylines for Dragnet from real police cases. He worked a lot with the LAPD during the time, and I guess he got the idea for some of the storylines for the Dragnet series, mostly, I believe, the 1960s version in full color. And they would say right at the beginning of the show, the story about to here is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. And of course, the credits would ring, and you hear that theme music, dun 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 dun. I mean, that was iconic for many years. And like I stated, this is way back before the Law and Order da 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 would take its spot. And both series ran on the NBC TV networks for many years. The difference is, Law and Order has lasted longer than Dragnet. Both the original and SVU did about way over 400 episodes when you look at it.
Yeah, I think that SVU's in the 500 range now.
And I'm not surprised because SVU has a massive cult following. All right, dear. I'm getting these audio messages from YR. I guess, like I stated before we started the show, he basically wanted to do something about this WrestleMania thing, but I wasn't really interested. I guess he left a couple of voice messages, which I'll probably play later on. Now, let's look into the man's history. He was, of course, the creator of Dragnet. He started that show on radio. He started in radio broadcasting in the 1940s. He created in 1949 the series before entering into the television realm in the 1950s, as well as other series. Now, throughout the whole 1960s, he worked in both acting and television production, creating also Adam 12 in 1968. And in 1970, he retired from acting to focus on producing, creating, and directing as well. He also directed episodes of Dragnet many times before. And I'm not too sure if you may remember this, but many times when you watch the 60s version of Dragnet, because have yet to see any of the 1950s episodes, they were like you often notice that many of the actors are like kind of like robots when they did their acting roles. When you think about it, there.
Which Webb continued on the other one too.
Yes, on like an emergency. He was like that. He was very like that. He was like, I'm not too sure what kind of acting that is considered, but it was a more macho way of delivering his lines when you look at it. Jesus Christ, to get these messages and blah, 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 whatever messages from YR, blah, 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 and all that stuff there. What the heck is he saying? Smart move, man. Love in your car, live. I'm not too sure what he's referred to there. I should probably get a hold of him later on to find out what the situation is with this channel with Vikings fan, but I'm won't till later on. Now, continuing our look, Webb's production style aimed at significant levels of detail and accuracy. Many of his works focus on law enforcement and emergency service in the Los Angeles area, mostly the Los Angeles Police Department, which directly supported the production of both Dragnet and Adam 12. Now, from September of 1962 to May of 1963, Webb was the executive producer of G.E. True, an anthology series that ran for about 33 episodes, which Webb acted as host, narrator, and also directed and acted in some episodes. That was the end of that program after 1963. In the February of the same year, he succeeded William T. Orr in the executive charge of Warner Brothers Television. Orr was moving on to the motion picture part of Warner Brothers. Webb brought in wholesome changes to the ABC/Warner Brothers detective series, 77 Sunset Strip,
I remember that show.
Retaining only an individual named Ephraim
Zimbalist
Zimbalist.
Jr.
Yeah, thank you.
Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
In the role of the police private detective Stuart Bailey. The result was a disaster, and critics accused Webb of being out of touch with the younger generation of viewers. Remember,
Yeah,
this
because he
was a new
dropped Roger
world.
Smith and Eddie Burns.
Now, he also started Temple Houston on NBC. This started Jeffrey Hunter following the exploits of Temple Lee Houston, a circuit riding lawyer, and the youngest son of Sam Houston, the Western character. Despite Webb and Hunter's high profiles, it ended after a 26-week run. In a 65 interview with the Milwaukee Journal, Hunter described the situation. He said, quote, "In the first place, we had no time to prepare for the series. I was notified on July 17th to be ready to start on August 7th for an October air date. When we reached the screen, we did not have a single segment ready. It was done so fast that the writers never got a chance to know what it was all about.
Makes
We
it kind
all
of
wanted
tough.
to, yeah, exactly. I mean, like, how many times has this happened? You know, you get all geared up to star in a movie role or TV series, and to find out they're not even done with the storyline, let alone the production crew and who their co-stars are going to be. Anyway, Hunter continues saying, "It was done so fast that the writers never got a chance to know what it was all about. We all wanted to follow the line indicated in the pilot film, which we thought would make a charming success. NBC, however, favored it, making it less than that. They decided to make it serious." And Webb's role with Warner ended in December of 1963. Now, after his departure from Warner Brothers, he first attempted to produce an adaptation of the Selena Mead series books. That was for CBS television. He teamed up with Universal Television to begin work on a new Dragnet series, a pilot television film based on the Harvey Gateman series, spelled G-I-G, what's his name? Glatman series, my bad. I thought the I was an L at first. It was based on a bunch of serial killings. It was produced in 1966 for NBC with Webb's Sergeant Joe Friday, joined by Harry Morgan as Officer Bill Gannon. Webb had tried to get Ben Alexander to reprise his role from the 1950s version of Dragnet as Frank Smith, but Alexander would not. He would not leave the ABC series Felony Squad, which he was involved in at that time.
Oh, well, I
The
remember
new
that one.
The new Dragnet premiered on mid-season replacement series in January of '67 and aired until April of 1970. To distinguish it from the original series, a year of production was added to the title: Dragnet '67, Dragnet '68, etc., etc. The revival emphasized crime prevention and outreach to the public. Its attempts to address the contemporary youth drug culture, such as the revival's first episode titled The LSD Story, guest starring Michael Burns as the Benjamin, little boy Carver, Blue Boy Carver, was voted 85 best TV episode of all time by TV Guide and TV Land. It had led certain episodes on the topic to achieve cult status due to their strained attempts to be with it, such as Joe Friday grilling Blue Boy by asking him, "You're pretty high and far out, aren't you? What kind of kick are you on, son?" Don Dubbins, who had acted alongside Webb in the DI in 1957, was featured in the second Dragnet episode, The Big Explosion, and was featured another actor in the production company's programs beginning in the 60s. Other actors in the revived series would include Clark Howitt, Virginia Craig, Peggy Weber, Bobby Trope, and Marco Lopez, and Tim Donnelly. In 68, Webb and his production partner, who I'll call a Sinlander. Let me be able to spell this name. It's Cinader. R.A. Sindander. We'll call him Sindander, I guess.
Yeah.
He launched Adam. All right. He launched Adam 12 for NBC, a spinoff of Dragnet. It started Martin Miller. What the heck we got? And YR is calling right now. It's calling on my phone. I guess he's is not aware about this, what we're doing right now. Let me see if I can add him on.
Okay.
That's right. We're still recording into a. Well, I think I may have solved the problem with the recording issue. I was able to record something. I had to do a little bit of extra settings thanks to the internet here. Anyways. All right. Adam 12 was launched on NBC in 68. It was a spinoff, as I mentioned. It paired the adventures of two LAPD officers, followed their escapades while on patrol, running until 1975 for a total of 7 seasons. Adam 12 was Webb's second longest running television series, along with, of course, Dragnet, with the 8 seasons recorded by the original Dragnet being the longest. Also that same year, Webb and Johnny Carson formed a stretch on the Tonight Show that has since long. Yep. Copper,
have you seen it?
Clapper. I'm not sure. I'm reading about this now.
Copper. Oh yeah, it's great.
Copper, Clapper, Caper, in which Webb, in character as Joe Friday, was working on the case of a robbery at a school bio factory. Carson played the owner.
If you get a chance to see that, you have got to see that.
Is it a funny? I guess
it's incredible. Oh yeah.
I
mean, they sit there and between the Copper, Capper, Clapper, and all that, it gets it to be a real tongue twister, and they pull it off brilliantly.
All right, got to check it out. That's for sure. Now, Webb as Joe Friday was working on the case of a robbery at a school bell factory. Carson played the owner of the factory and victim of the theft, which consisted of each bell being relieved of its clapper, the device that makes the bell ring. The sketch's dialogue consisted of both Webb and Carson discussing the situation in deadpan style and using alliteration and tongue twisters to describe the incident. Each word having either a C or a CI sound at the beginning. Both Webb and Carson tried to desperately not to lose composure, but both did near the end of the sketch.
Yeah, now, talking about that Webb comes in and tells him, Something along the lines of, I hear somebody copped your copper clappers. And the guy says, yes, my copper clappers have been copped. I mean, they go on and on like this. It's incredible.
Someone like Abbott and Costello with the "Who's on First" routine,
Well,
in a
that's
way.
not a tongue twister. This
Yeah,
one was. I mean, I don't even know how they did it.
probably with a lots of practice because I know if I were to try something like that, it'll have to be a long time before I get it down pat for sure. Now, in 1970, Webb decided to bring an end to Dragnet and cease acting to focus on expanding the production profile of Mark 7 Limited. Webb entered the world of district attorneys and federal government work with two series. The first was called The DA, which had Robert Conrad and Harry Morgan as two ADAs. The second was O'Hara, United States Treasury, was a co-production of Webb and David Janssen, the former star
Remember
of The
that one too?
Fugitive, and future star of Harry O. And unfortunately, neither series lasted very long. The DA lasted about 15 episodes, and O'Hara afterwards ended after 23 episodes. Later in 71, 72, Webb co-created the show Emergency, as I mentioned, which focused on the fictional Station 51 Rescue Squad of LA County Fire Department and its work in coordination with the emergency department staff of the fictional Rampart General Hospital. The paramedic program was among the first paramedic services in the United States. Webb had casted his ex-wife, Julie London, as well as her second husband, Dragnet member Bobby Troop, as head nurse Dixie McCall and Dr. Joe Early, respectively, and a dude named Randolph Mantooth,
Hmm.
Kevin Ty, and his last name is spelled Tighe, playing paramedics, John Cage, Roy DeSoto, and Robert Fuller, playing doctors and paramedics, such and such. Kind of the same way with Chicago Med that was created by Dick Wolf
Right.
later on, which is running right now. Like I guess on Wednesday nights on NBC, we have the Chicago Three. There's a Chicago PD, Chicago Med, and Chicago Fire, which focuses on the adventures of a fire department in Windy City.
They're both pretty good.
Emergency.
They're all three pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I heard many. I remember seeing a couple episodes myself, to be honest. Um, Emergency ran as part of NBC's Saturday night lineup for its 6 seasons. It was a highly popular series, sometimes winning its time slot against CBS's other popularity show on Saturday night, which included All in the Family. The series came to an end in 1977, but it spawned a series of telefilms that ran until 1979. Webb's company and Universal also contracted with animator Fred Calvert to produce a spin-off Saturday morning cartoon titled Emergency Plus 4, which ran for about 3 seasons and the last in reruns, and featured the paramedics assisted by 4 youngsters and 3 pets.
Well, Saturday cartoons, that's what they're going to do.
Exactly, obviously. Now, I want to get to Project UFO. I want to talk about this one here. Uh, we can, as I mentioned, that came about in 1979. I first heard about it, and me being into UFOs and sci-fi at that period, I decided to check it out. It was kind of like the same with Dragnet. Two partners, I guess, with the Air Force, were looking into investigations and cases involving UFO sightings and extraterrestrials. And there was one episode I remember some elderly lady claiming that two supposed aliens were approaching at her front door, asking them to deposit money to fund something there, new spacecraft. They were wearing shades, suits and
And aliens are
ties.
doing this. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. They were trying to scam this elderly woman until the two agents busted them, exposed them. Bing bam boom. Which is kind of ironic that we mentioned this because me and Ken were in the conversation on his show talking about how massively scammed the elderly men and women out there get because
Yeah.
I'm not too sure what it was or are naive to all this stuff going on, whether they're new to it or they're just gullible. I'm not too sure.
Well, a lot of it's foreign and new to them. And, the way things have changed, as far as they know, it's good.
Exactly. Now,
I
in
say they,
1980,
hey, I'm their age.
yeah, is that, yeah. Now, in 1987, Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks starred in a movie parody and homage to Webb, simply called Dragnet, which I saw in the theaters. Harry Morgan reprised his role from the TV series as Captain Bill Gannon, which had now become a captain of detectives. The comedy movie was written and directed by Tom Mankiewicz in his directorial debut. Aykroyd played the role of Joe Friday, described as the namesake nephew of the original. Hanks co-starred as police officer Pep Strebeck, Friday's new smart alecky streetwise partner. And sadly, he died in 1982. He died from a heart attack in the morning hours of December of 1982. He was 62. And he received, I guess, a big 20. If they call it a 21 gun salute in his honor because
Yeah.
that was provided by the LAPD. I remember seeing the footage on Entertainment Tonight around that time because you remember he worked very closely with the LAPD. I'm thinking he was very respected and cherished there. I would not be
He
surprised that there was a
provided a
plaque.
very positive view of the police force.
Exactly, he did. Yes. Something that the public needs to know of today. But sadly, we got all these bad cops out there running amok, causing mischief for everybody, taking the law into their own hands. And sadly, because of those bad cops, the good cops are the ones being put on blast by the public. And that's not right.
Mm-mm.
I know, it never was. Now, Webb's personal life was often defined by the love of his jazz, other than his interest in police work. He had a collection of more than 6,000 jazz recordings. Webb's own recordings reached cult status, including his deadpan delivery of Try a Little Tenderness. Was he a singer?
No, I believe I've heard it, and I think he more like talks it out.
Ah, I see. Kind of like what William Shatner did back then as well. Remember, he talked out stuff like Come Together. He did it with look for an album called The Transformed Man that Shatner put out in the 1960s. That's considered possibly the worst of the worst, from what I understand a few times. Huh. Now,
Not surprising.
yep. His lifelong interest in the cornet, he played a instrument, I guess,
Hmm.
allowed him to move
It's
easily
kind of
into the
like a
jazz culture.
trumpet, sort of, but not quite.
Yes, I was when I was looking for images of Jack Webb, I saw there was one holding one of these items. I figure that's interesting. I figure it must have been for a movie role, but apparently he played the damn thing. He also met actress and singer Julia London. They married in 1947, had two daughters. They divorced in 1954. He had he married three more times after that, and his last partner, I guess, was Jackie Lowry. I guess she was with him for the last 2 years of his life, I guess.
Hmm.
Now, Stacey Webb authorized and collaborated on the book Just the Facts, Man, which was a popular saying that Joe Friday did
That
on
was
the
his
Dragnet
catchphrase.
series. Yep. And the authorized biography of Jack Webb, creator of Dragnet, Adam 12, and Emergency, in which Daniel Moyer and Eugene Alvarez were the primary authors. It was published in 1999. Stacey did not live to see the publication of the book. She was killed in a collision with a California Highway Patrol vehicle 3 years earlier.
Ironic.
I know, which is sad. Now, Webb has 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, one for radio and the other, of course, for television. In 1982, Webb was posthumously inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. Good for you, man. So, let's talk about our memories of Dragnet on all these shows. Adam 12 I see many times on syndication when I was a kid in the 1970s, many times before. I was intrigued by that series. I remember seeing Emergency on the Saturday nights on when it ran on ABC or NBC, which are the two networks. And of course, Project UFO, which I saw throughout the whole season. I guess it lasted for one season, if I'm correct.
I don't know.
Let me look it up right now. Give me a couple of seconds here. Blah, blah, blah. All right, here we go. All right, we do this. Project UFO TV series. Okay, there. Let me look it up. 2 seasons. It debuted in 1979. No, it's 1978. My bad.
It's about 50 some odd episodes, depending on
Yeah.
when it cut off.
Yeah. 2 government agents investigate sightings of extraterrestrials and unidentified flying objects. And let me look this up because I was way intrigued into this. It was a American TV series which ran on NBC from 78 to 79, 13 episodes each season. It was
Okay,
based on
it was half
right.
runs then, because most of them run 26 to 30
Okay, there.
back then.
All right, there. So altogether was about 26. The show is based loosely on the real life Project Blue Book. The show was created by Jack Webb, who poured Air Force files looking for episode ideas. Now, the show, of course, was a production of Mark 7 Unlimited and associated with World Vision Enterprises, now CBS Television Distribution, and was Webb's last weekly series produced before his death a couple years later on. It was one of the rare times that Webb did not produce a series with Universal Television or Warner Brothers Television. Webb collaborated with Universal for every series he made following his departure from Warner Brothers, who had named him the president of the television division in the 1950s. The show featured 2 Air Force investigators with the Foreign Technology Division at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, charged with investigating UFO sightings. The first season started William Jordan and Casey Swam, or SWAIM. Now, in the pilot episode, they were informed Gatlin, I guess, one of their captains, I guess. Let me look for the guy here. Major Jake Gatlin informed the newly assigned officers or agents, since it is impossible to prove a negative, Your job was to prove that each UFO sighting was real by researching and disproving possible alternative explanations. Gatton also told the two that he himself had once seen something I cannot explain while flying as an Air Force pilot, which led his interest into Project Blue Book. Now, it also has a list of episodes, rights issues. Let me get to this one here. Except for runs in the United Kingdom Sci-Fi Channel and Australian's cable network TV1, in the early 1990s and on TV Land in the US, which ran one episode as part of its Ultimate TV Fan Hour, this series has not aired its original network run. March
Well, usually
7.
26 episodes is not going to do it.
Yeah.
I think the magic number is 100.
I think so, yeah. Mark 7 had creative control over the series and originally held the copyright, but the rights to the series were uncertain as of August 2010. In Italy, the first season of the series was shown in syndication in different Italian districts. The series also was shown on an Indian state-run television network called Doordarshan around 1985. This series of shows was also shown on the Arabic or American Oil Company, also called Aramco in 1979 through 1981. This was aired on late night TV once a week on their Channel 2 television station. All right.
Well, you're getting a lot of messages.
I know, exactly. It's like, holy cow, dude. What the heck's going on here? Well, this is on the Wrestling Show Live that was set up when we did our episode on Vince McMahon last week. Takes a while to load up. I guess Scott McKinnon, Paul 3, RP, those guys are exchanging chats left and right, blah, blah, blah. Takes a while to load up. But if it's to say that, wouldn't it be, of course, Dick Wolf, who we also spotlighted on our look of Law and Order.
And the Chicago episodes.
And the Chicago 3, as I call it. How
well,
would
actually,
you rate...
he had a fourth one.
Really?
Chicago Justice.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that. The guy comes up with so much shows, it's hard to keep track. I think no, there was advertised on the USA Network this docu-series, kind of like the First 48. He was the executive producer of that. I forgot the title of that show.
And Ion Television, which incessantly plays crime shows, has Chicago Fire and Chicago PD.
And Law and Order SVU as well.
Yeah,
where
right.
Yep. And of course, WeTV, which I watched a lot of during the pandemic a couple years ago, they showed the original Law and Order. And speaking of which, you heard that Sam Waterston may be departing from the original Law and Order, and somebody else is going to take his spot.
That's still going?
The name of it. Yeah, it's still going. Well, it was, I guess, the original ended. I forget I forget what year it ended. I guess it may have been the 2000s, or earlier than that. But it was brought back a couple years ago with Sam Waterston and a whole new cast. I guess Anthony Anderson he's returned to this series. He was on there previously before, but I guess it's under a different name and a different alias, if I'm correct. And I guess the only ones I remember was, of course, Sam Waterston, Jack McCoy.
Right.
Yes. And I guess if I read a couple of times, Waterston is stepping down from his role as McCoy. And I guess the other person whose name, sadly, I don't remember, he's going to be taking his spot, I guess. But then again, Law and Order had so many revolving people come in and out and in. I mean, let's not forget they had one time Jeff Goldblum in the Criminal Intent series for a
Right.
couple of seasons. Yes, which was pretty interesting because Jeff Goldblum is a highly respected movie actor. I guess if it's a fit to say that him being on that show kind of led to other Hollywood movie actors to do TV series. Because you remember Gene Wilder had something Wilder ran it on TV for a couple seasons. Yeah. All right. So Dragnet. Do you think by time we'll probably see a new Dragnet series emerge?
I don't think so.
Because this came to my mind, and I know it's a pretty far-fetched idea, probably an idiotic one, but suppose Dick Wolf decides to pay homage to Jack Webb by creating a new Dragnet series. Would all the Dragnet diehards be furious with this?
I don't think he'll do it. I mean, that's just a
Right.
supposition, but I'd be amazed.
I know there'll be a lot of public outcry against it. I know that for sure because Dragnet was Webb's concept and idea, whereas Law and Order was Wolf's.
Right. It would be like somebody doing a different Law and Order.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, I did a video on this series. There's a new Law and Order that's being done in Toronto. It's called Law and Order Toronto Criminal Intent. And it's running on the, what's it called? What's the station that's called
I
again?
don't. I don't know. I
Uh,
think they already did one in England, but I could be wrong.
yes, Law and Order UK. I remember seeing a couple episodes here on YouTube for that one. It's kind of interesting how the judicial system in England works when you think
Yeah, it's a
about
little
it.
different.
Very different. I'm interested to see how it works in Canada because I think like England, the prosecutors, the judges, the ADAs wear these war robes, I guess, that are red. I guess if I'm correct.
I guess I don't have any idea.
I don't know. I gotta check out Law and Order. I gotta check out some episodes of whichever law show in Canada they have because to find out for myself because I was intrigued by it myself. And so, What's your favorite Dragnet episodes?
Oh gosh, I don't remember any of them. I've
Really?
seen them, but I don't remember them. It's
Oh,
like it'd be pretty hard for me to tell you some of the Law and Orders and or even the Chicago ones, and I've just seen some of those
that's
recently.
true then. Yeah, I know. Yeah, my two favorite Dragnet episodes have to be the ones that I mentioned. This young boy who's kind of like the outcast of all the teenagers. Nobody invites him to any parties. Nobody lets him in. He's kind of like has a little mental illness. He has a collection of hand grenades. Thinking, and the mama is unaware of this. They're thinking, oh, they're just old, dried, not workable. Whereas Friday says this one is real and it still works. And he's in this party threatening to blow up this backyard party because nobody, as I mentioned, invites him over. Nobody involves him. He's outside looking in.
Yeah.
And in the end, and also in the end, I got to mention this as well. They always do the updates on the characters
Oh
at
yeah,
the
I
end.
remember that.
You know that's always been interesting.
Yeah, so and so
Uh,
went on to this and did that.
mhm.
This so and so spent the next 40 years in prison. You know, whatever.
Yep, exactly. I think Cheaters does a lot of updates on their clients and suspects as well.
Yeah, I noticed MTV from ads is running a similar show, but I forgot the name of it.
Yes, I heard about it as well. I mean, like, well, we got to spotlight that show sometime on our next episode of TV Memories, that's for sure, because that's filmed in the Dallas area, which is not far from where you live.
No, I mean, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right. So I guess that concludes our episode of TV Memories for this evening.
And we're doing what album next week?
Let's see. You came up with a couple. Did you come up with
I think
one
Derek and the
last night?
Dominoes.
Yeah, we got to do that one. Definitely got to talk about that release because that was the only studio album.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are reasons that's the case.
Yeah, a lot of reasons. We got to get into detail. And of course, we got to look into some of the songs. Of course, the story behind the title track, which we all know by heart.
Right.
All right, there. So, this concludes our episode of TV Memories with, of course, me, Arknolia Strokabine. And also, don't forget to subscribe to Arknolia's Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Arknolia and sign up for whichever tier you're interested in. You get loads of content ranging from sports, movies, television, music,
I think
wrestling.
there I think there's 100+ episodes right now.
Wow. You
Now I
still
haven't
doing
put
that right
anything
now?
up new in a little while, but
Ah,
I
I
still
see
have a
there.
bunch up there.
Myself, I did some adjusting on my OBS last night. I was able to record me about 56 minutes of some techno. I'm going to possibly try out recording me a full techno set, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to see how this episode turns out that we just did and then upload it onto my channel. Now, actually, premiere it on my channel later on this evening. And that's about it that's going on for the rest of the evening. So
Alrighty.
all right, so for myself and Arknolia, everybody have a pleasant Thursday evening, and we'll see you all next Wednesday and Thursday, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye bye. Take care.
Talk to you next week, man.
Gotcha. All right.